Life on Mars begins underground or within the shelter of natural lava tubes, which are massive caverns formed by ancient volcanic activity. These natural tunnels provide the perfect shield against the harsh cosmic radiation that sleets down through the thin atmosphere. The temperature outside is brutal, averaging around 80 degrees below zero, so the habitats must be warm and sealed tight against the near vacuum outside. Inside these sanctuaries, the air is kept at a comfortable pressure, and the humidity is carefully controlled to prevent the dry Martian environment from affecting the skin and lungs of the settlers. It is a cozy existence, similar to a winter evening in a mountain cabin, where the cold is kept at bay by thick walls and advanced technology. The weather on the surface is a constant companion to the colonists. While there is no rain to water the ground, there are clouds of water ice that drift high in the atmosphere, creating delicate patterns against the pink sky. Occasionally, fine snow made of carbon dioxide falls gently toward the ground, sublimating into mist before it ever touches the dust. The most powerful force of nature here is the wind, which can whip the fine regolith into global dust storms that wrap the entire planet in a haze for weeks. During these times, the solar panels are useless, and the colony relies on the steady hum of nuclear batteries, huddling together while the sand scours the outer shell of their home. Food production is the heartbeat of the colony and takes place in glowing hydroponic gardens that smell of damp earth and tomato vines. Because the Martian soil contains toxic chemicals called perchlorates, it must be washed and treated before it can be used, so most crops are grown in nutrient-rich water solutions. The diet is simple but healthy, focusing on leafy greens, potatoes, and high-protein algae that grow rapidly in the artificial light. For the settlers, walking into the greenhouse is like stepping back onto Earth, and many spend their leisure time simply sitting among the plants to soak in the color green, which is so rare on this red world. Water is the most precious resource of all, and is recycled with an efficiency that borders on perfection. Every drop of moisture from the air, the showers, and even the breath of the inhabitants is captured, purified, and used again. The colony also mines the vast glaciers of water ice buried beneath the dust, melting the ancient freeze to create fresh reserves. This water is not just for drinking, but is also split apart by electricity to create the oxygen that fills the rooms, meaning that the very air the settlers breathe comes from the ice of the planet itself. Gravity on Mars is only 38% of what we feel on Earth, giving the body a sense of lightness and freedom. Walking feels like floating, and heavy objects can be lifted with surprising ease. However, this low gravity requires the settlers to exercise vigorously every day to keep their bones and muscles strong. Gymnasiums are filled with resistance machines, but they are also places of play, where sports are reinvented to take advantage of the ability to jump higher and move slower than possible on the homeworld. Children born here will move with a natural grace, adapted perfectly to their lighter world, perhaps finding the concept of Earth's heavy gravity frightening and exhausting. The theories of how we will live long-term involve slowly changing the planet itself, a process known as terraforming. This is a dream that spans centuries, beginning with warming the poles to release carbon dioxide and thicken the atmosphere. Over hundreds of years, the pressure would rise enough to allow liquid water to flow across the surface once again, filling the ancient riverbeds and craters with blue lakes. Hardy plants and genetically modified lichens would be seeded across the rocks to slowly produce oxygen, eventually turning the red dust into fertile soil. It is a slow and gentle process, like the growing of a great redwood tree, requiring patience and faith in a future that the current generation will never see. For now, the obstacles are many, from the abrasive dust that clings to spacesuits to the psychological challenge of being millions of miles from the nearest ocean. Yet the human spirit adapts, finding a routine in the maintenance of life support systems and the exploration of the geology outside. The isolation creates a tight-knit community where everyone looks out for one another, and social bonds are stronger than steel. Evenings are spent in communal halls, sharing meals and stories, playing music, and looking out the viewports at the constellations, which shine with an unwavering brilliance in the thin air. As the lights of the habitat dim for the night cycle, the colony sleeps under the protection of the rock and the machine. The silence of Mars is deep and profound, a quiet that wraps around the mind and allows for true rest. Outside, the moons Phobos and Deimos race across the star-filled sky, watching over the sleeping world. This is a life of purpose and peace, a testament to the ability of life to find a way in even the most distant places. And as the settler drifts off to sleep, they know that they are part of a grand new chapter, resting safely in the cradle of a new home among the stars. The exploration of the surface extends far beyond the immediate safety of the habitat, leading scientists and engineers toward geological wonders that defy imagination. When they climb into the pressurized rovers to traverse the landscape, they drive toward landmarks like Olympus Mons, a volcano so massive that it stands 3 times the height of Mount Everest. Its base is so wide that it would cover the entire state of Arizona, and the slopes rise so gently toward the thin atmosphere that someone standing at the bottom would not even realize they were looking at a mountain because the peak is hidden beyond the curvature of the planet. To the east stretches the Valles Marineris, a canyon system that runs like a deep scar across the face of the world, so long that it would stretch from New York to Los Angeles if placed on Earth. The cliffs here drop down for miles into shadow, revealing layers of red rock that hold the geological history of billions of years, waiting for geologists to read them like the pages of an ancient book. Stepping out of the rover requires a heavy and pressurized suit that essentially becomes a personal spaceship for the wearer. The only sound inside the helmet is the rhythmic hiss of the air regulator and the hum of the cooling fans that keep the astronaut from overheating in the direct sunlight. Outside the glass visor, the silence is absolute and overwhelming, a stillness that has existed for eons before life ever arrived to disturb it. The dust crunching beneath the heavy boots is the only noise in a world that has no birds to sing and no leaves to rustle in the wind. This profound quiet is not frightening, but rather meditative, forcing the explorer to focus entirely on the present moment and the breathtaking scenery that surrounds them. The colors are not just red, but vary in shades of brown, gold, and tan, shifting constantly as the sun moves across the sky and the shadows lengthen across the craters. Communication with Earth is a practice in patience, because the distance between the two planets is so great that radio waves take anywhere from 4 to 20 minutes to cross the void. This means that a conversation is never instant, and every message sent is a monologue that travels through the darkness before a reply can return. This delay creates a unique sense of independence for the people on Mars, as they cannot rely on mission control to solve sudden problems, but must trust in their own training and their fellow settlers. Watching the Earth in the night sky becomes a favorite pastime, seeing it as a bright blue star that is brighter than Venus, a reminder of the water-rich world they left behind. It brings a sense of nostalgia, but also a deep pride in how far humanity has ventured, bridging the gap between worlds with fragile radio signals and stubborn determination. As the years turn into decades, the colony begins to develop its own culture and traditions that are distinct from those of Earth. Children learn physics not from textbooks, but by watching how water behaves in low gravity and how dust settles in a vacuum chamber. The festivals celebrated here mark the changing of the Martian seasons and the arrival of supply ships, creating a calendar that is unique to the Red Planet. There is a shared understanding that they are building the foundation for a civilization that might one day span the entire solar system. The work is hard and the environment is unforgiving, yet there is a deep satisfaction in planting a seed in a hydroponic tray or welding a seam on a new habitat, knowing that these small acts are the building blocks of the future. As the inhabitants lay down to rest after a long day of labor, they do so with the knowledge that they are the pioneers of a new age, sleeping soundly under the protective layers of rock while the universe turns silently above them. The expansion of the settlement moves deeper into the crust of the planet as giant boring machines chew through the basalt rock to create vast networks of interconnected tunnels that link the scattered habitats together. These underground highways are illuminated by strips of soft amber light that mimic the glow of the sun during the golden hour to maintain the circadian rhythms of the workers who travel between the sectors. Electric trams glide silently along magnetic tracks, carrying people and cargo from the industrial zones to the residential quarters, effectively shrinking the distance between the isolated outposts. The walls of these tunnels are reinforced with a concrete mixture made from the local sulfur and regolith, which is stronger than standard cement and provides a reassuring sense of permanence against the weight of the rock above. It is here in the depths that the colony begins to feel less like a temporary camp and more like a subterranean city, where the hum of life is constant and secure. Leisure time becomes a vital part of the daily routine to combat the monotony of the enclosed environment, and the settlers find creative ways to entertain themselves using the unique physics of their home. Large spherical chambers are constructed specifically for low-gravity recreation, where people can strap on fabric wings and glide through the air like birds, banking and diving with a freedom that is impossible on Earth. The games played here are three-dimensional and fluid, turning exercise into a dance that celebrates the lightness of the body. For those seeking quiet, there are digital libraries where one can put on a virtual reality headset and walk through a simulation of a rainy forest, or sit by a roaring ocean listening to the crash of waves that do not exist on Mars. These digital escapes are crucial for mental health, allowing the mind to take a break from the red and gray palette and remember the lush chaos of the living world they left behind. The search for life remains the driving force behind the scientific missions that venture out into the desolate plains. Rovers equipped with drills and chemical sensors patrol the edges of ancient lake beds, looking for microscopic fossils or chemical signatures that would prove biology once thrived here billions of years ago. The suspense of this search hangs over the colony like a held breath, because finding even a single microbe would rewrite the story of the universe and prove that we are not alone in the dark. Every sample returned to the lab is analyzed with a mixture of hope and skepticism as scientists peer through microscopes, looking for the telltale structures of cells. It is a hunt for our cosmic cousins, hidden in the rust, waiting for the moment when the silence of the stones is finally broken by discovery.
As the Martian year draws to a close, the colony prepares for the long winter, where the sun shrinks in the sky and the temperatures plunge even lower, testing the limits of the heating systems. The community gathers closer together during these months, sharing meals in the central plaza, where the air is warm and filled with the smell of baking bread and roasted vegetables from the greenhouse.
Stories are told and songs are sung, creating a warmth that has nothing to do with temperature, but everything to do with human connection. When the winter storms howl outside and scour the surface with abrasive dust, the people inside feel a profound sense of gratitude for the thin metal walls that separate them from the void. They sleep deeply, knowing that the machines are watching over them and that the sun will return to warm the solar arrays once again, bringing with it the promise of another year of survival and growth on the frontier. The view from the observation decks becomes a daily ritual for many who stand in silence, watching the stars that burn with a fierce and steady light, without the twinkle seen on Earth, because there is almost no atmosphere to distort them. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a spilled river of diamond dust, so bright that it casts a faint shadow on the ground. And among the thousands of points of light, the Earth is just one blue spark that rises in the morning and sets in the evening. This view changes the philosophy of the people living here, making them feel small but significant, as they realize they are the only consciousness for millions of miles in every direction, which fosters a deep sense of peace and a feeling that the petty problems of the past have been left behind. The sounds of the habitat become a lullaby that the residents learn to love, such as the rhythmic thrum of the air recyclers and the soft beep of the medical monitors, and the distant vibration of the mining drills working deep in the rock. These are the sounds of life in a place that should be dead, and they provide a subconscious comfort that allows for deep and restorative sleep, because silence would mean the machines have stopped. When the lights dim to simulate night, the corridors become quiet, and the only movement is the patrol of the maintenance bots that glide silently over the floors, cleaning and inspecting the seals, ensuring that the sanctuary remains secure while the colony rests. As the decades fade into history, the first signs of the greening of Mars begin to appear, not as forests, but as patches of lichen and moss that have been engineered to eat the rock and release oxygen. These small, stubborn plants are the pioneers of the surface, creeping slowly across the red stones and changing the color of the landscape 1 millimeter at a time. They are the promise of a future where humans might one day walk outside without a suit, breathing the air of a second home. And this dream is the legacy that the current generation leaves for the next. The story of Mars is still being written every day by the quiet heroes who wake up and do the work, ensuring that the light of humanity continues to burn bright in the dark. High above the atmosphere, massive ships called cyclers rotate slowly in the void, acting as ferries that never stop moving between the two worlds. These giant vessels swing in a perpetual loop between Earth and Mars, using the gravity of the sun to glide through the dark with minimal fuel, making them the silent lifelines of the solar system. Watching them pass overhead is a calming ritual for the settlers, as the ships appear as slow-moving stars that bring supplies and new arrivals who are eager to start a life on the frontier. It serves as a visual reminder that the colony is part of a larger web of humanity that stretches across millions of miles, connecting the dusty red plains to the blue oceans of home. Inside the habitats, the day winds down with a gradual shift in lighting that mimics the soft hues of a terrestrial sunset, turning the harsh white work lights into warm ambers and deep oranges to signal the body that it is time to rest. The public spaces empty out,
as people return to their private quarters, which are small but designed for maximum comfort, featuring soundproofing that creates a cocoon of silence away from the noise of the machinery. Here, in the quiet of the personal pod, one can read a book made of real paper, which is a rare luxury imported from Earth, or simply lie back and listen to the faint vibrations of the life support systems that circulate the air like a gentle breeze. The sense of time on Mars is marked not just by clocks, but by the movement of the shadows outside, which lengthen and stretch across the craters as the distant sun dips below the sharp horizon. The night brings a sudden drop in temperature that freezes the carbon dioxide into a thin layer of frost on the ground, making the landscape glitter like scattered diamonds under the pale light of the moons.
It is a peaceful time when the physical work is done and the challenges of survival are set aside, allowing the mind to drift into dreams that are free from the weight of gravity and the worry of the day. As sleep finally comes, it arrives with the deep knowledge that the colony is safe and secure, protected by thick layers of rock and the dedication of the people who built this sanctuary. The breathing slows to match the steady rhythm of the quiet room, and heavy eyelids close on the red world outside, shutting out the vastness of the universe for a few hours of restoration. In this state of deep rest, there is no difference between Earth and Mars, only the universal need for peace and the comfort of a warm bed in a quiet room, while the galaxy turns slowly in the silence of the night. While the human inhabitants rest, the automated systems continue their silent ballet across the surface, where autonomous drones wake up to clear the dust from the solar arrays, ensuring that the panels are polished and ready to catch the first rays of the sun. These machines move with a precise and mechanical grace over the frost-covered ground, using soft brushes and electrostatic waves to flick the fine red powder away without scratching the delicate glass surfaces. Inside the greenhouse, the climate control systems shift their cycle to mimic the cool air of a terrestrial night, allowing the plants to respire and rest in the darkness, which is essential for their growth and health. The faint clicking of the thermal expansion joints in the metal structure is the only sound that breaks the stillness, as the habitat cools down slightly in the absence of the day's activity, creating a rhythm that the structure itself seems to breathe. The concept of time itself is slightly different here, because a day on Mars is about 40 minutes longer than a day on Earth, which is a small difference that adds up over weeks and months. This extra time is often used by the settlers as a period of quiet reflection, known as the time slip, where the clocks are paused to realign with the rotation of the planet, giving everyone a moment of uncounted stillness before the new day begins. It is a treasured pause in the schedule, where no work is assigned and no meetings are held, allowing for a collective breath that synchronizes the biological clocks of the crew with the alien world they inhabit. Sleeping through this extra time allows for a deeper rest, and many find that their dreams become more vivid and detailed as their bodies adjust to the longer cycle of the red planet. When the morning finally arrives, it does not break with a sudden burst of light, but with a slow gradient of color that seeps into the sky, turning the black of space into a deep violet and then a hazy pink. The artificial lights inside the habitat begin to brighten in sync with the dawn, rising slowly from a warm glow to a bright white that stimulates the waking mind and signals the start of the work cycle. The smell of coffee, which is brewed with the utmost care from beans grown in the agricultural sector, begins to waft through the corridors, acting as a comforting anchor to the morning rituals of Earth. Sitting with a warm cup in hand and watching the sun crest over the jagged rim of a distant crater is a moment of pure tranquility, where the vastness of the landscape feels inviting rather than hostile. As the colony wakes up, the data from the night comes pouring in from the Deep Space Network, bringing news and entertainment and letters from Earth that traveled through the void while everyone was asleep. This connection to the homeworld is a daily reminder of where humanity started, but the focus is always on the work ahead and the incremental progress of building a new civilization. The plans for the day are reviewed on digital tablets, and teams assemble with a quiet efficiency that comes from years of working together in a high-stakes environment. There is no rush hour traffic and no chaotic noise of a city commute, only the short walk through the clean, well-lit tunnels to the laboratories and workshops where the future is being built one piece at a time. The long-term vision for the planet involves not just survival, but the creation of a beauty that is unique to Mars, such as sculpting the rock into monuments that sing when the wind blows through them, or creating gardens that bloom in the low gravity, with flowers that grow taller and more delicate than anything possible on Earth.
These artistic endeavors are just as important as the scientific ones, because they give the soul a reason to stay and a way to express the profound experience of living on a new world. It is a life that requires patience and a deep appreciation for the slow unfolding of time, where success is measured in the steady hum of the air scrubbers and the healthy green of a new leaf. As the day begins again, the cycle of life continues against the backdrop of the eternal red desert, a testament to the enduring quiet strength of the human spirit. The mining operations that sustain the colony take place far from the living quarters, located in the deep, silent sectors where the crust of the planet is rich with iron, magnesium, and rare metals. These mines are not dark and dirty places like those of the past on Earth, but are clean and brightly lit caverns. Here, autonomous electric machines hum quietly as they extract the raw materials from the rock. The walls of these excavations glitter under the floodlights, revealing veins of mineral wealth that have been hidden in the dark for billions of years, simply waiting for the touch of human ingenuity to bring them into the light. The processed ore is moved on silent conveyor belts to the smelting plants, where it is turned into the steel and glass needed to build new domes and new tunnels, allowing the city to grow organically, much like a coral reef spreading beneath the sea. Occasionally, the planet shifts in its sleep, causing weak Marsquakes that send a gentle tremor through the habitat. This movement feels less like an earthquake and more like the distant vibration of a passing train. The structures are built to sway and absorb this energy, so instead of fear, these tremors bring a sense of connection to the living geology of the world. It reminds the inhabitants that Mars is not a dead rock, but a dynamic body with a molten core deep inside. Sensors placed all over the planet listen to these shifts, recording the heartbeat of Mars, and they send the data to geologists who study the interior structure in a quiet room filled with screens, displaying the pulse of the planet in soothing waves of green and blue light. When the great dust storms arrive, they do not hit with a sudden violence, but grow slowly over days. They turn the sky from a clear pink to a deep and opaque rust color, blocking out the sun completely. Inside the habitat, the mood changes to one of cozy isolation, similar to being inside a warm cabin during a heavy blizzard on Earth. The viewports are covered by protective shutters, and the artificial lights are turned up to a warmer spectrum to combat the gloom outside, creating a feeling of safety and enclosure. The sound of the wind is a low and constant drone against the outer shell, a white noise that wraps the entire colony in a blanket of sound. Many find this deep humming sound relaxing, conducive to long hours of reading or quiet conversation. During these storms, the work outside stops completely, and the colony enters a period of enforced rest, where the focus shifts from expansion to maintenance and introspection.
People gather in the dining halls to share long meals that stretch on for hours, or they retreat to the archives. This digital library stores the sum of human knowledge and culture. Here one can listen to the symphonies of Mozart or read the plays of Shakespeare while the wind howls outside, preserving the heritage of Earth on a world that has no history of its own. It is a time for slowing down and for appreciating the safety of the walls that separate the fragile human ecosystem from the chaotic fury of the elements. As the storm clears, the atmosphere is scrubbed clean of the finer particles, leaving the air clearer than before, and the view of the stars becomes even more spectacular. The clearing of the sky is celebrated by the opening of the shutters and the return of the sun. This light floods the solar farms with energy, recharging the batteries that kept the lights on during the dark days. The rovers are sent out to sweep the dust from the airlocks and the roads, and life returns to its normal rhythm with a renewed appreciation for the calm weather. This cycle of storm and silence is the breathing pattern of the planet, and the settlers learn to move in time with it, respecting the power of the environment rather than fighting against it. The long-term health of the colonists is maintained in the medical bays, which are more like wellness centers than hospitals. They are filled with soft light, green plants, and the sound of running water. Here, the doctors focus on keeping the body strong against the low gravity, using magnetic resonance fields and vibration therapy to stimulate bone growth without the need for heavy lifting. There are tanks of warm saline water where people can float in total weightlessness. They close their eyes and drift in a void that mimics the peace of deep space, allowing the mind to completely disconnect from the stresses of the day. This therapy is a favorite among the crew, who emerge from the tanks feeling weightless and serene, carrying that sense of calm with them back into the bustling corridors of the city. In the deepest levels of the colony, there are seed vaults that hold the genetic backup of Earth's biosphere. These seeds are stored in freezing cold lockers that require no electricity to stay cool. These vaults are the insurance policy for 2 worlds, containing the potential to regrow forests, grasslands, and fields of wheat should anything happen to the crops in the greenhouse or on Earth itself. Walking through these silent rows of silver containers is a solemn experience, a reminder of the responsibility that the colony holds as the guardian of life in the solar system. The air here is still and cold, and the silence is absolute, creating a cathedral of science where the future is sleeping in microscopic form, waiting for the day it is needed. As the Martian year creates a long elliptical loop around the sun, the distance between the planet and the warmth of the star changes, creating seasons that are far more extreme than those on Earth. The arrival of spring is marked not by blooming flowers, but by the sublimation of the dry ice caps. The ice turns directly into gas, creating wispy white clouds that trail across the equator. The temperature rises enough that the heaters run at a lower power, and the rovers can travel further without risking their batteries freezing. This gives the explorers a wider range to map the unknown terrain. It is a season of optimism and planning, where the maps are drawn for new tunnels and new outposts that will push the boundary of human presence further into the wilderness. The children of Mars, who have never seen an ocean, view the recordings of Earth's seas with a mixture of fascination and disbelief. They are unable to comprehend so much water existing in one place without walls to contain it. To them, the universe is made of rock, stars, and metal. The idea of an open sky that goes on forever is the stuff of fairy tales. They find their beauty in the geometry of the crystals found in the caves, the perfect silence of the vacuum,
and the way the dust motes dance in the light of the windows. They are the first true aliens, not because they are different biologically, but because their minds are shaped by a world that has no horizon of water and no canopy of leaves, only the endless, beautiful expanse of the red desert. Ultimately, the story of this life is one of adaptation and the quiet triumph of routine over the impossible odds of survival.
It is found in the simple pleasure of a hot meal at the end of a shift, the sound of a friend's voice over the radio, and the feeling of soft sheets in a bunk that is millions of miles from where humanity began. The colony is a beacon of order in a universe of entropy, a small, warm light that persists against the cold dark. Every night, as the settlers drift into sleep, they do so with the peace of knowing that they have carved out a home in the heavens. The planet turns, the stars wheel overhead, and the silence holds them gently in its gravity, waiting for the sun to rise on another day of life on the red world. The scientific search for life is a patient and meticulous process, centered on the ancient river deltas where water once flowed billions of years ago. Every drill site is chosen with care, using orbital maps to identify clays and sulfates, which are the chemical fingerprints of water. When the autonomous rovers drill into the sediment, they move with a slow and deliberate precision, ensuring that the fragile layers of rock are not disturbed. The samples are sealed in sterile capsules and brought back to the laboratories, where they are examined under electron microscopes. The scientists are looking for fossilized microbes, tiny structures that would prove that life is not unique to Earth, but is a common miracle of the universe. This search gives a profound sense of purpose to the colony, as everyone knows they might be living on top of the greatest discovery in human history. Social life in the colony has evolved into a culture of extreme politeness and consideration, which is necessary when living in confined spaces. Because there is nowhere to storm off to during an argument, conflicts are resolved quickly and calmly, often through mediation. The community understands that high emotions consume energy and oxygen, quite literally, so a calm demeanor is seen as a survival trait. Over time, this has created a society that speaks softly, values listening over shouting, and places the group's well-being above individual ego. It is a gentle civilization, forged by the harshness of the environment, where a helping hand is always offered before it is even asked for. High above the equator, the great orbital mirrors are slowly being assembled by fleets of drones. These silver sails, thin as foil and miles wide, are designed to catch the sunlight that would normally miss the planet and reflect it down toward the polar ice caps. It is a project of immense scale, visible from the ground as a new artificial constellation that glitters in the daylight sky. The goal is to gently raise the global temperature by just a few degrees, which would trigger a chain reaction of releasing frozen gases. Watching these mirrors unfold is a favorite pastime for the settlers, a visual reminder that they are not just inhabitants of Mars, but active architects of its future climate. The recycling systems that keep the colony alive have become a form of art, as waste is a concept that no longer exists.
Every scrap of plastic is melted down to print new tools, and every organic waste product is composted to feed the soil in the greenhouse. This closed-loop system creates a deep respect for material objects, and nothing is ever thrown away carelessly. A broken cup is not trash, but raw material for a new plate, and worn-out clothing is shredded to become insulation for the walls. This cycle of renewal is a constant lesson in efficiency, teaching the colonists that everything has value if you have the ingenuity to find it. As the evening settles in, the lights in the corridors shift to a deep amber, mimicking the glow of a campfire. This is the time for storytelling, a tradition that has made a resurgence in the absence of constant digital media. People gather in small groups to share memories of Earth, describing the smell of rain on hot asphalt or the sound of leaves rustling in an autumn wind. These stories are recorded and archived, becoming the folklore of the New World, ensuring that the sensory history of Earth is preserved for the generations who will never experience it firsthand. It is a way of keeping the connection to the home world alive, painting pictures with words for the children who know only the red dust and the black sky. The ventilation system, which is the lungs of the habitat, has a rhythm that mimics the ocean tides, rising and falling in intensity to prevent the air from becoming stale. This subtle white noise is the backdrop to every conversation and every dream, a constant reassurance that the machinery is working.
Skilled technicians walk the halls with stethoscopes, listening to the pipes and fans like doctors examining a patient, able to predict a malfunction just by the change in pitch. They are the guardians of the breath, treating the life support system with a reverence usually reserved for religious artifacts, because they know that silence is the only enemy. On the surface, the wind creates sculptures out of the sand, forming dunes that migrate slowly across the plains like sleeping giants. These dunes are beautiful but dangerous, and the rovers must navigate around them to avoid getting stuck in the soft shifting powder. The geologists map these movements, naming the dune fields after the great deserts of Earth, creating a geography that is a mixture of the old and the new. Seeing a rover track disappear under a shifting drift is a reminder of how quickly the planet can erase the mark of human presence, forcing the settlers to remain humble in the face of such geologic power. Sleep comes easily in the low gravity, as the body does not have to fight against its own weight to find a comfortable position. The pressure points that cause tossing and turning on Earth are gone, allowing for a deep and floating sensation that is incredibly restorative. Many settlers report having vivid and lucid dreams, perhaps triggered by the unique magnetic environment or the silence of the surroundings. These dreams are often shared over breakfast, analyzed and discussed as if they were another form of exploration, wandering through the inner landscape while the body rests in the outer one.
The connection with the moons, Phobos and Deimos, becomes almost personal, as they are the only moving companions in the sky. Phobos, being closer, races across the stars, while Deimos lingers like a shy observer. The colonists track their phases not for tides, but for timekeeping, using the passing of the moons to mark the shifts in the work schedule. There is a specific beauty in watching a solar eclipse caused by Phobos, which is not a perfect circle, but a jagged, potato-shaped shadow that bites a chunk out of the sun. It is a celestial event that happens frequently, never failing to draw a crowd to the observation decks to witness the clockwork of the solar system in motion. Ultimately, life here is defined by a sense of grand patience. The terraforming project will take 1,000 years. The trees will take decades to reach the ceiling of the dome, and the journey to independence is slow. Yet no one is in a rush, because the very nature of Mars demands a slower pace. The urgency of Earth life, with its traffic and deadlines, has been replaced by the steady, rhythmic endurance of the stone. The settlers are playing a long game, planting seeds for a harvest they will not see, content in the knowledge that they are the foundation stones of a cathedral that will rise toward the stars long after they are gone. The clothing worn inside the habitat is designed for both function and comfort, woven from smart textiles that continuously monitor the vital signs of the wearer.
Because there is no need for heavy winter coats inside the temperature-controlled domes, the fashion is light and breathable, often resembling the athletic wear of Earth, but tailored to move with the fluid grace of low gravity. The fabrics are antimicrobial and self-cleaning to reduce the load on the water recycling systems, meaning that laundry day is a rare event rather than a weekly chore. There is a tactile comfort in these materials, which are soft against the skin, providing a sense of physical ease that contrasts with the hard, abrasive rock that lies just on the other side of the airlock walls. The daily routine is often punctuated by the arrival of data packets from the Deep Space Network, which are the digital lifelines connecting the colony to the billions of people back on Earth. These transmissions are not just technical updates or news reports, but also contain vast libraries of music, movies, and literature that are eagerly consumed by the settlers during their downtime. Listening to a new album that was released on Earth just 20 minutes ago creates a strange sensation of being both connected and separate, as if watching the culture of the homeworld through a telescope. It is a one-way mirror where the colonists can see everything happening on Earth, but Earth can only see the delayed and curated reports sent back from the Red Frontier. As the colony grows, the architecture begins to evolve from purely functional metal cylinders to more organic shapes that mimic the curves of nature.
The walls are printed from local materials and polished to a smooth finish, colored in soothing shades of beige and terracotta that blend with the landscape rather than fighting against it. Large communal areas are designed with high ceilings to prevent claustrophobia, and the lighting is carefully programmed to cast long, soft shadows that give the illusion of natural sunlight filtering through trees. Walking through these halls feels less like being in a space station and more like walking through a modern museum or a quiet library, where the atmosphere is one of hushed respect and tranquility. The study of the Martian night sky offers a view that is unparalleled in the solar system, as the lack of light pollution reveals the universe in all its depth and complexity. The Milky Way is not just a faint band of light, but a textured river of stars that seems to have physical weight, hanging directly over the transparent observation domes. Astronomers here do not have to worry about clouds or atmospheric distortion, allowing them to peer deeper into the cosmos with smaller telescopes than are possible on Earth. It is a paradise for stargazers who can track the movement of the planets with the naked eye, watching Jupiter and Saturn shine like beacons in the velvet blackness. Deep within the industrial sectors, the 3D printers work tirelessly around the clock, layering melted polymers and metal dust to create everything from forks to furniture. The rhythmic sound of these machines is a constant background hum, a sound of creation that signifies the colony is becoming self-reliant.
There is a profound satisfaction in watching an object materialize from nothing, built from the very dust of the planet, transforming the raw and hostile environment into the tools of civilization. It changes the relationship with material goods, as every object has a known origin and a specific purpose, reducing the clutter of life to only what is essential and beautiful. The geological history of the planet is written in the canyon walls, where layers of sediment reveal the wet and dry cycles of the past billion years. Geologists rappel down these cliffs in slow motion, floating gently on safety lines to collect samples from eras when Mars might have been blue. These rocks are more than just stone. They are the time capsules of the solar system, holding secrets about how planets live and die. Holding a piece of Martian basalt in a gloved hand is a connection to the deep past, a tactile reminder that this world was here long before humanity arrived and will be here long after. Water conservation is not just a rule, but a philosophy that is ingrained in every child and adult, creating a mindfulness about consumption that is almost spiritual. The sound of running water is rare and precious,
usually reserved for the communal fountains in the park sectors where people go to meditate. Watching the water cycle through the fountain is a mesmerizing experience, knowing that every drop has been purified and recycled thousands of times, traveling with the crew from Earth and sustaining them through the void.
It is a closed loop of life that mirrors the ecological balance of a small planet, teaching the settlers that they are part of the system, not masters of it. When the two moons rise together, they create a double shadow that moves swiftly across the solar farms, a celestial dance that is unique to this world. The speed of Phobos makes it seem like an artificial satellite, while Deimos hangs back like a distant guardian. This dynamic sky keeps the eyes drawn upward, reminding the settlers that they are on a moving vessel floating through space. It prevents the feeling of stagnation, as the heavens are always shifting, always turning, providing a new spectacle every night for those who take the time to look up. In the quiet hours before dawn, the colony feels most at peace, suspended in the silence between the work of yesterday and the tasks of tomorrow. The ventilation fans slow to a whisper, and the lights are at their dimmest, creating a womb-like safety against the freezing vacuum outside. It is in these moments that the true nature of the mission is felt most deeply, not as a conquest, but as a quiet endurance. The settlers sleep with the comfort of knowing they are the seeds of life in a barren garden, resting in the care of their machines, waiting for the gentle rise of the distant sun to bring the gift of a new day. The preservation of history becomes a sacred duty in this silent world, where the lack of erosion means that physical marks can last for millions of years. The footprints left by the first explorers in the sheltered valleys remain distinct and undisturbed, preserved by the thin air and the absence of rain, standing as eternal monuments to the moment humanity took its first step on a new world. These sites are treated with the reverence of ancient temples, protected by strict exclusion zones where no rover may tread, ensuring that the original path of discovery is never erased. It is a stillness that speaks of permanence, suggesting that long after the steel domes have rusted and the machines have stopped, the evidence of our courage will remain etched into the red soil for the universe to remember. As the generations pass, the definition of home shifts from the blue marble seen in the telescope to the red horizon seen through the window. The people born here do not dream of oceans they have never touched or forests they have never smelled, but instead find comfort in the geometric beauty of the lava tubes and the protective embrace of the tunnels. They are the children of the dust, adapted to the lower gravity and the recycling of the air, finding their freedom in the vast open spaces of the canyon floors. To them, Earth is a garden of myth, a beautiful but heavy world where the sky pushes down on you, while Mars is the land of lightness and potential where the sky pulls you upward. The terraforming project, once a desperate dream, eventually begins to show its first true results as the atmospheric pressure climbs millibar by millibar. In the deepest parts of the Valles Marineris, where the air is thickest, the first pools of liquid water begin to gather in the shadows, reflecting the stars for the first time in 3 billion years. These small, dark mirrors are the proof that the planet is waking up from its long hibernation, responding to the warmth and the care of its new caretakers. It is a slow resurrection, measured not in years, but in centuries. Yet the sight of water rippling in the wind is enough to bring tears to the eyes of the elders who remember when the world was entirely dry. In the quiet hours of the night, when the colony is asleep, the connection between the human mind and the alien world feels complete.
The fear of the void has been replaced by a deep respect for the solitude, and the isolation is no longer a burden, but a blanket that wraps the settlement in peace. The hum of the ventilation is the lullaby of survival, a constant reminder that life is tenacious and adaptable, capable of finding a foothold on a rock floating in the cold dark. There is a sense of unity that permeates the dreams of the settlers, a collective understanding that they are all passengers on the same ship, bound together by the fragile systems that keep them alive. As the story of the day comes to a close, the lights in the habitat fade to a soft starlight glow, signaling the end of labor and the beginning of deep rest. The rovers park in their days, the solar arrays lock into their night positions, and the greenhouse plants fold their leaves in sleep.
The red planet turns slowly on its axis, carrying its precious cargo of life through the shadow, waiting for the dawn that will surely come. And in this silence, under the watch of the distant moons, humanity sleeps soundly, safe in the knowledge that they have found a way to belong among the stars.